Pastor Joe coming to you via a video this time. And I want to do a video Bible study on a topic that is really taboo in church today. A topic that many will become very uncomfortable once you discover what the topic is. But it is a topic that sits right smack dab in the middle of our Bible. And according to Solomon, it's his best writing that he ever wrote. So we're going to dive into a study today on a topic for couples. For couples, but it's not just for couples. It's also for anybody who wishes to grow in their faith. It's for anyone who has relationships in their life. And it's a topic that is apropos to those who one day want to get married and for those who are anticipating marriage in the very near future. So there's something in this for everybody. So whether you're dating, whether you're courting, whether you're engaged, whether you're married or you've been married for a really, really long time, there's going to be something in this video series that is going to help you. And it's my goal over the next 5 weeks to introduce to you a topic that, like I said, is a little risque. So I'm going to preface this with this video series is going to be probably a PG-13 video series. I think it would be great to go through first with your wife or with your spouse, your husband. Second, I think it would be a great study to go through a second time with some other couples and helping other couples grow in their faith. And then number 3, I think it's a great series to go through with your teenagers, whether they be girls or boys, and talk to them about what real womanhood is and what real manhood is when it comes to the Bible. There's some false notions today that real manhood is bravado and strong, but I hate to break it to you. Every time I try to prove myself how strong I am to my wife, all I manage to do is hurt myself, and she's not very impressed and doesn't really gain me any ground. So what does God say when it comes to our relationships and what biblical manhood and biblical womanhood looks like? Well, if you're still watching, then I know that you're interested in this topic. So without further ado, let's reveal to you what our topic is. Here it comes. Are you ready? All right. We're going to be studying the book of Song of Solomon. We're going to be studying about sex. We're going to be studying about God. And we're going to be studying about love. Now, I led with the word sex because in church, we don't talk about that word much, unless it's to a group of teenagers who are getting ready to go to prom. But sex is talked about all throughout the Bible. From the book of Genesis all the way through the New Testament, we see different talks, even within the church, about sex. Many times we see it in a negative light. It's called fornication or abomination. Other times we see it talked about in the realm in which God ordained it to be, in the realm of marriage, and we're told to be fruitful and multiply. And so as we look at the different topic of sex, the topic of God, and the topic of love, when it comes to the book of Song of Solomon, I hope that you'll get your blush and your Snickers and all that stuff out of the way, and let's get into a Bible study together of this wonderful book that God placed in the middle of our Bible just for us to learn. So, without further ado, let's jump into our study. And as we jump in here, I'm going to get some things together, and let's go ahead and start looking at this together. So by way of introduction, I want to introduce this book because this is a book that a lot of us don't know much about. If I were to ask you who wrote the book, most of you are going to say Solomon because, well, frankly, it's in the name, right? Song of Solomon. Some Bibles call it the Song of Songs, and we'll talk about why it says that here in just a little bit in our study. But I want to start out with a presupposition that we have as Christians. When we search inside our Bible on matters of faith, finance, and wisdom, we want to know what God says about it. We want to know within those topics of Scripture what the Bible actually says. However, when it comes to matters of the heart, matters of affection, attraction, matters of sex, matters of relationship, we end up going to the world a lot of times. We go to marriage counselors who aren't Christians. We go to books and secular people who have opinions about how to make love better and how to spice up your sexual life. I'm telling you what, if you do the things in Song of Solomon, there's some risky things, some risque things that are in this book. And as we go through here, there will be points of the book in which, like I said, young eyes and young ears. And if you struggle a little bit with your thought life, it's going to be a little tough for you. You need accountability as you go through this and people that help keep you in check. So, but when it comes to matters of the heart, we tend to look outside the Bible. And as Christians, we shouldn't do that. The Bible is the sole authority of faith and practice in all areas of life. And that includes the area of sex, the area of relationships, and the area of marriage. Let's talk about the interpretation of this passage of Scripture. It almost didn't get put in the Bible. The main reason is God is not mentioned anywhere in this book. However, when we look at the suggested outline for the book here in just a little bit, you're going to see that in chapter 5, we do have an approval of God on what's transpired in the book. Second thing that is true is some believe that the content would lead to sexual lust, which is why even today in many churches we refuse to touch on this book. But we're not going to be that church. We're going to take a look and see what this book has to say about our relationship with God. Song of Solomon has been referred to as the exegetical nightmare. The exegetical nightmare by many scholars. The main reason for that is, well, it's really threefold. Number one, it's historical Hebrew poetry, which is full of imagery that is difficult for us to interpret. It's difficult for a couple of reasons. Number one, we don't live in a Hebrew culture. Number two, the modern day things that we have today are not referenceable to some degree with things that are going on in the Bible. When we read about a mare, very rarely would we compare our wives to a mare. However, especially a mare that's in heat, but the writer of this book of the Bible is going to use those words. So I would encourage you not to use that on a Valentine's Day card coming up in the near future in February. Number two, and I do have a typo here, I apologize, but it's hard to determine who is talking throughout the book. It's hard to tell. It's kind of like watching a soap opera. 1 minute he's talking, next minute somebody else is talking, then next minute there's this group talking. And over and over again, we see different times and different people talking, and it's more like a soap opera in the way that it snaps scenes back and forth, more so than it is a book that we read straight through. Excuse me. Last of all, there's no clear plot or narrative for this book. It's not a book that you can think through. It's not like Paul in his epistles where he gives the doctrine up front and then the practical things. There's truth spread all through this book. However, when it comes to actually understanding the book, there is no clear plot and no clear narrative when it comes to understanding this one. Let's keep moving. There's some controversy on interpreting this book as well, and there are three competing views for this book. And let's take an overview of these real quick. What are the three interpretations? Well, number one is that the book is a fictional book. Number two, the book is allegorical. And number three, the book is historical. That's the one, by the way, we're going to take the view of. However, I do see credence for number one. However, anytime we can interpret scripture in a literal way, we always yield to that. So as we exegetically tear through this book, we are going to err on the side of the historical view. What is the main argument against the fictional or for the fictional view of the interpretation? Well, number one, Solomon had 700 wives and 300 concubines. That means this: Solomon wasn't monogamous. So they would argue, what are the odds that he took parts of all the relationships that he had, the 1,000 relationships with women that he had, and he watered it down to his greatest of songs, and was celebrating just love in general, and he was taking the best from every part of relationships, combining it into one person, and writing the book about it. Now, it seems a little far-fetched, and it seems a little disingenuous. However, there is that interpretation of what's going on in this book. So there are scholars that believe this is the case. So the allegorical view, however, believes that everything in the book is merely symbolic of God's love towards us. It has nothing to do with love between a man and a woman. So the lover is God. The one that is the female in the narrative is us. And it is a picture of God's ever pursuing love for us. Now, there's a lot of things wrong with this, especially when you get into the word pictures that are going to be described here in a little while. But overall, I don't take this view. I don't really see credence for this view. I believe God is throughout all Scripture. But if you want to take the argument that because God isn't mentioned, it has to be an allegorical view of God, well, there's another book of the Bible in which God's name is not mentioned either, and that is the book of Esther. And I don't think any of us would argue that it would be an allegorical story there either. We would say it's a historical story and something that really happened, and I believe this is as well. So that leads us to the historical view, and the historical view simply says that this is the actual romance between Solomon and a poor Shulamite woman who lived in the country. So that's where we're going to hang our hat. That's the interpretation we're going to go with, and that's going to be our approach. So as we dive into the book here, let's define how we're going to look at the book from a historical view. So we're going to appreciate the book for what it is. It is a celebration of love, of romance, of courtship, and of marriage between one man and one woman. So we're going to appreciate the book for what it is, a historical celebration of love, romance, courtship, marriage, and one woman and one man in a monogamous relationship. So we're going to be traveling through this book verse by verse as we study out. We'll be extracting, or exegeting is the theological word, extracting the practical application where it's appropriate. By the way, again, I reiterate, this is both for dating and for married folk. Now, I also want to preface this by saying this. Just because I'm teaching this doesn't mean that I've arrived in any or all of these areas that we're going to be discussing. Marriage is very much something we constantly work on, something that we constantly have to make better. So as we're going through this book, I want you to understand, I'm not sitting here saying, do like Pastor Joe. No, I'm saying there are areas in this that I am working on, and as I studied this out, I have a head start on you because I know what's coming. But I want you to read the book as we study through this. I want you to read the verses as we go through this narrative, because you're going to see that there are areas in your own marriage, there are some personal things about you that are not good and that you need to fix and that you need to make right. So whether you're in a dating relationship, whether you're single, dating, courting, engaged, married, middle-aged and married, or old-aged and married, there's going to be something for you to help your marriage throughout, or your future marriage, and to help you be the right spouse that you need to be so that your marriage can be all that God wants it to be. Let's keep moving. So who are the main characters in the book? Because we don't want to make this video forever long, but we do have a lot of information to cover here in the first one. And I almost divided this into two parts, but I really wanted you to get the overall picture of what we got going into this. So who are the main characters that we're going to be taking a look at here? Well, let's start out first of all. There is the Shulamite woman, or she is called the Beloved. And I'm going to increase the screen size here just for a moment so that as we're looking at this, we understand. That way you can see it on the screen as big as we can. So she is the dominant character of the book. She's called the Beloved. She is a poor girl from the country who works in a vineyard, according to chapter 1 and verse 6. And she speaks 53% of the time and does the majority of the initiating in the relationship, as we will see. Now I'm going to jump back in here because I know some of you are thinking, whoa, wait a second. You're trying to tell me that the Bible says that the woman is to be an initiator and not passive. I know many girls are taught, you allow the guy to make the first move. You allow the guy to... Now remember, we are talking about all facets of a relationship here. There are going to be areas in which she pursues him. There's going to be areas in which he pursues her. And but overall, we're taking a look at this book, and we're going to hear the Shulamite woman 53% of the time talking about the relationship, injecting her belief about the relationship. So now that we got that clear, let's jump back in here again. So, by the way, too, remember that this is a male-dominated culture. A male-dominated culture. Let's go to the next one. The man, her lover. This is more likely Solomon, the woman's interest. We're going to learn as much about him from his own words and her words to him about him. So we're going to hear what he thinks about him, and we're going to hear what she thinks about him. We're going to hear what she thinks about her, and we're going to hear about what he thinks of her. So imagine getting both sides of the story at the same time. We are going to get both sides of this story from both characters as we move throughout the book. Now, there's another group of people called the Daughters of Jerusalem. These are younger women who are inexperienced in their love and are under the tutelage of the Shulamite woman. These are probably younger girls who have not been in a relationship yet. They are single, they are virgins, and they are learning very much from what the Shulamite woman is saying and what she is going through in her relationship. And then there's one last group, and they're only mentioned two places, once at the very beginning and once at the very end of the book. The first time we see them is in chapter 1, verses 5 and 6, and also at the end, chapter 8, verses 8 and 9, where it seems to be that the mother and the brothers are trying to protect their daughter and little sister's sexuality. However, interesting enough, she actually pushes them away and tries to make space between the family and her soon-to-be new husband. So there'll be some interesting dynamics, and we'll look at that as we move through the book. Let me give you a suggested outline of the book. And again, I'm going to make my screen big here so that you have the maximum view of what this slide is going to show you. And so as we get situated here with our new slide setup, let's look at the overview of this book. So there's really three themes to the book, and this is a very difficult book to outline. You're going to find a lot of different outlines and a bunch of different commentaries. So this outline is not original with me. However, it is a great breakdown of how the book goes. So the first part of the book, we're going to see the courtship, or the leaving, if you will, chapters 1, verse 2 through chapter 3 and verse 5. We're going to see how the lover's remembrances, we're going to see how she reflects and thinks about her lover and different events that have transpired in their courtship. And then we're also going to see the expression of reciprocal love. Now, I want to jump in here real quick and talk to you about this, because many times you've heard me say that we are reciprocal lovers. God made us in a way to reciprocate love. Whether you're looking at Adam and Eve in the garden, or if you're looking at any marriage throughout the Bible, even in this situation where you have the Shulamite woman and Solomon, there's reciprocal love there. And by the way, God is a God that designed us to love reciprocally. Let me prove that to you. We love God because he first, there it is, loved us. And then he did something with that love, right? John 3:16. We talk about that quite often, and many times I refer to those verses because I want us to understand that we are reciprocal lovers. When somebody displays love to us, it should drive us to want to serve somebody else or serve that person back in a way that doesn't pay them back, but shows or demonstrates affection or love back to that person. And you know what? It's no different here in Song of Solomon. Let's jump back into the outline. So we see the expression of reciprocal love, chapter 2, verse 8, through chapter 3 and verse 5. By the way, what are some relationships you have in which you show reciprocal love? Number 2, the wedding, the cleaving, chapter 3, verse 6 through chapter 5 and verse 1. And this is the Shulamite woman looking at her kingly bridegroom, and then the wedding, the first night together, where it gets a little bit steamy as we're going to study that out. And then also, and we see last of all, God's approval as we move through that text. So, as we continue on down the outline here, we're going to see God interjected there in chapter 5 and verse 1. That leads us into part 3 with the marriage, or the weaving together, chapter 5, verse 2 through chapter 8 and verse 14. Now, I don't know about you, but if you've been married any amount of time, you will find out that, well, number one, you're going to have a disagreement with your spouse. I know during the dating thing, everything was the same. Everything was great. You got along. All the things were working great. But there will come a point in your marriage in which you'll have that first disagreement. In chapter 6, we're going to look at the resolution to the disagreement. And then finally, we're going to learn how to grow in grace with one another. So as we jump back out into our shared screen here in just a moment, I want us to understand that this outline is just going to help us think through this book, okay? So there's a leaving, a cleaving, and a weaving, if you will, are the three sections of the book. And here in a moment, we're going to take a look at the first part, and that is the leaving that transpires as we work our way through this book. Let's move on. Again, a disclaimer, this is a PG-13 book. We are going to be talking about situations and scenarios that involve physical intimacy between a husband and a wife. We will be talking about physical touch in a public display, PDA, public display of affection. And we will be talking about things in relationships that may make you feel uncomfortable sometimes. But that's okay. God put in his word, and we need to be uncomfortable sometimes in our relationships. All right, so let's talk about the biblical laws of attraction according to Song of Solomon, chapter 1, verses 1 through 4. That is going to be our theme today for our study, the biblical laws of attraction. The world has their own set. And here are the biblical laws of attraction. I'm going to jump the screen back big again so that you can see what's going on here. And you can understand what is at stake. So this is a relationship between a man and a woman. They are probably very young teenagers, probably middle-aged teenagers to late-aged teenagers at the time that this is written. I know that kind of takes us back in our culture because we are seeing marriage pushed off to a later and later age all the time. However, in the Bible times, people were married at a very young age, and it would not be very surprising for this young couple to have been working on getting married even in their mid-teenage years. Remember, Joseph and Mary, this time of year at Christmas when this is being recorded, were married at a very young age as well. And so this is no different. And there is going to be something for everybody in this relationship. There's something that's going to be applicable for you as we move through this. So, what can we say about the biblical law of attraction? Let's keep moving on here. A little bit of my slide bled over. So let's talk about this. An introduction to Song of Solomon. This is Solomon's Song of Songs. Now, some of your translations, some of your Bibles use the theme Song of Psalms, or Songs of Songs, and Song of Songs, and then others will see Song of Solomon as the title of the book. The meaning is this. This is the creme de la creme writing of all of Solomon's songs that he wrote. This is the most wonderful one that he wrote. This is the best. Look at verse 1 and what it says. The Song of Songs, which is Solomon's. So it is Solomon who wrote the song. It is Solomon's best song of all the songs that he wrote. Well, you might be asking, how many psalms did he write? Well, 1 Kings chapter 4, verse 32 actually tells us the answer to that. He composed over 3,000 proverbs and 1,005 songs. I thought people today wrote a lot of songs, but man, 1,005 songs and over 3,000 proverbs. And as you guess it, this song is his best. It's the flagship. It's the one to read if you're going to read them. So let's get into the biblical laws of attraction. Biblical law of attraction number 1 has to do with affection. Has to do with affection. Song of Solomon chapter 1 and verse 2 states this: let him kiss me with the kisses of his mouth. Man, we don't have to go but a single verse before we hit what this book is going to be all about. It's going to be all about the lover pursuing her lover and a desire to know him, be around him, be with him, love him, and the lover trying to get to his Shulamite woman. And we're going to see over and over again these two going back and forth. Number two, there's a desire that this woman has to be with her lover. If you've ever watched somebody dating or courting, or you remember back to your own days in which you were doing that, you remember there was a time in which they drove you absolutely crazy. You couldn't stop thinking about it. You couldn't wait to see them. You manipulated situations to run into them and to find them and to come to know them. And that's what we're talking about here. So what exactly is she desiring here? I mean, is this, what is she talking about? Is she talking about wanting to be intimate with him right off the bat? Or maybe there's something a little less than we're thinking here. So what she is really longing for is not sexual touching. She is not interested in sex at this point. She is not saying, I'm ready for sex. Take your clothes off. Or, hey, let's have sex right now. Or I can't wait to see you so we can kiss, make out, and turn into a sex act here in a little bit. No. What she's saying is, I'm longing for your affection. I'm longing for your attention. I'm longing for you to show me affection. And believe you me, there is a difference between affection and foreplay. There's a difference between affection and foreplay. I want to break this down a little bit, not in a graphic way, but in a way that makes sense to us so that we understand what the Bible's teaching here. We're not getting skewed by what we think it says versus what it really says. What she is longing for is non-sexual touching. She wants a hug from her man. She wants a kiss on the cheek. She wants some affection. Affection, by the way, is not foreplay. Why? Men enjoy foreplay. So do some women. So I'm not going to make it exclusive here. But foreplay is when you do something expecting a reciprocating response that will escalate to a desirous outcome. Okay? It is you injecting attention into your spouse in a way to arouse them to a dedicated outcome. Sex. Affection is not that. Affection is your wife walks in the room, you see her across the room, and you wink at her. Or you sit down next to your wife on the couch and you put your hand on her knee, or you put your arm around her shoulders, or you walk up behind your wife and you massage her shoulders. This is what she's longing for. She's longing for her man to give her attention. Obviously, he's not there, and she is longing to run to him to get attention. By the way, foreplay is motivated by what I can get, where affection is motivated by what can I give. If I'm giving my wife attention, and I'm doing it just merely to let her know I know she's there and to demonstrate love to her, that's going to mean a whole lot more than if I'm trying to manipulate her to get a desired outcome. See the difference? Foreplay, nothing wrong with foreplay in the right environment, but affection is not foreplay, and foreplay is definitely not affection. Let's get into this a little deeper. A man who can practice affection without foreplay during the courtship that demonstrates self-control that is necessary later in the marriage phase. Now let me throw this up big on the screen here so we understand this. A man who can practice affection without foreplay during the courtship demonstrates self-control that is necessary later in the marriage phase. Because there's going to be times in your marriage in which sexual intimacy is not going to be able to happen. Sometimes it's in pregnancy. Sometimes it's that time of the month. Sometimes it's because of situations that are going on, stress on the family. There's issues, physical, medical issues that are going on with one or both of the spouses that are going to make for a period of time in which you're not going to be able to have physical intimacy with your spouse. And those that can practice during their engagement period, showing affection without it moving into foreplay, are going to be a lot better off when they get into marriage. Affection goes nowhere. It's simply you showing or demonstrating to your spouse that you love them, that you care about them, that you're thinking about them, that you're interested in them. However, foreplay leads to sex. There is a desirous outcome that is out in front of you that you are working towards in that relationship. So let's keep moving here. Let's jump back forward. Let me back up a slide here as I jumped ahead too far. Let's talk about biblical law of attraction number 2. Not only is there affection, but there's also an emotional connection between this man and this woman. And I want you to see that. Look at verse 2 in the second half. For your love is better than wine. Now, she is using wine here as an intoxicating value. Now, I'm not advocating that the Bible is teaching that you should or shouldn't drink. The Bible talks about wine is a mocker, strong drink is raging, and whoever partakes thereof is not wise. It's not wise to look upon the water or on the drink while it moves, the juice while it moves in the cup. And so I'm not endorsing drinking here, and I'm not saying the Bible is or isn't saying social drinking's okay. Here's the thing I tell people when it comes to the area of alcohol: tell me 10 bad things that happen from drinking alcohol, then give me 10 good things. And if you can rip off the 10 bad quicker than 10 good, I would stay away from it. I would stay away from it. Just look at what's going on in our social culture today with alcoholism and how it destroys marriages and tears apart relationships. I don't want that. I don't need that risk. Besides, I don't know if I'm an alcoholic or not. I've never had a drink. But after that first drink, if I'm an alcoholic, I'm not going to be able to stop. So I just go ahead and I go for abstinence in that area, but I'm not going to hang my hat either way. I know that there are definitely way more things that happen negative from drinking than positive. So with that being said, let's keep moving through our text here, because that's not the point of the text at all. The point of the text is this: his affection is having an effect on her like alcohol has effect on a drunkard. Okay? That's the picture. As alcohol makes a guy drunk or a person drunk and do stupid stuff, this guy's affection is making me think crazy thoughts. She's saying, man, this guy is messing me up. I used to be able to resist, and I can't resist this guy. She's saying, your love and affection is causing me to think and do things that I do not normally do. She is all about this dude. So how does a man love a woman? Let's stop and let's talk about this quickly, because I do think that this is an important characteristic in marriages today. And I think this is an area in which our marriages are struggling today. And I think, first of all, the very first one on the list here is an area in which we struggle a lot. And that is this: we fail to provide a safe place for our wives. We fail to provide a safe place for our wives. And what I mean by that is this: husbands, if your wife is afraid of you, that's not a good thing. That's not biblical. If your wife is afraid to come to you about things because you're going to blow up, you're going to lose it, you're going to blame her, you're going to tear her down, that is not biblical manhood. That's the world. The Bible teaches that the husband is to be a safe place where the wife can be open and transparent with her feelings, open and transparent with her thoughts, and open and transparent with her requests. And there is a Bible passage that teaches this. Just as we have the ability to go directly to God with our request, we're able to walk boldly into the throne room of God and make requests before God. Our wives should have the ability to walk directly into our life and share what they have going on in their life. Number 2, we need to listen to our spouses. We need to listen to our wives. They are trying to tell us how we can love them and make them better. They're trying to tell us what their needs are. They're trying to tell you what they want to see in biblical manhood. I mentioned this earlier. If I go out and hurt myself, my wife doesn't think I'm more macho. She thinks I'm stupid. She thinks I'm dumb for going out and hurting myself, when I don't need to prove my love, or I don't need to prove how strong I am to her. Next thing I want to notice is this: take interest in her interest and learn her needs. The only time you do something together is when you want to get something out of it. That's not a good place. That's not a good place to be. You need to take interest and do things with your wife. You should have hobbies you do together. You should have movies you watch together. You should have things that you do together. If your wife likes to walk, go on a walk with your wife. If she likes to hunt, go hunting with your wife. Come on, guys. That's like a given. We need to take interest in what she's interested in, and we need to learn what her needs are. Sometimes you got to sit down and talk and listen to do that. Number 4, keep romance alive. You were a romantic when you got her to follow you in dating. You were romantic when you got her to follow you in engagement. You were romantic when you got her to follow you into marriage. But guys, I get it. I know what happens. All that time, you're just trying to win her. You're trying to win her. You're trying to win her. Then you win her and you get married. And then all of a sudden you realize my role just changed. Now I'm not trying to woo her. Now I've got to provide for her. I've got to feed her. I've got to take care of her. I got to protect her. I got to put shelter over her. I got to give money to provide for her. And we go into this preservation and this protection role, and we give up on the romantic role. And you know what, guys? We need to get back to the romantic role. You need to keep dating your wife even after you're married. Maybe you've taken a 20-year hiatus in your marriage. Today's a great day to start. I would tell you take your wife out to eat, but right now we can't do that here in Minnesota. So go out and do something with your wife, just you and her. And then the last one is support her. Whatever she wants to do, support her. Build up your wife. Do not be the guy, do not be the jerk husband that tears down your wife. All right? That's not biblical. Build up your wife. Support your wife. Don't be out in public down talking your wife. Build your wife up. Build her up, and she will build you up. I promise you that. All right, enough of that. Let's keep moving. Wives, you can take over the conversation from there and tell your husband how you want to see him step up in those 5 areas. Biblical law of affection number 3, and this one I'm not going to spend a lot of time on, but it's mentioned here, and we're going to mention it because it's important, and that is hygiene and smell. Hygiene and smell. Let me show you something. Verse 3, your anointing oils are fragrant. You know what she says? She says this, my man smells good. He smells good, and he knows how to put on the cologne just right. This is a good thing. He wears deodorant. He showers. He shaves. He brushes his teeth. He's not a lazy bum. He's doing the things. He's taking care of it. He's taking care of himself. Let me ask you a question right now. How pleasing is your fragrance right now? Are you one of those people that you dressed up when you were dating, and now that you're married, it's like, I married him. He knows what I am. This is how it is. Or you know what? You're that guy that says, I came home from work. I ain't showering. I smell like I am because I'm a man. You know what? The Bible tells us, smell good. Take care of yourself. Your body is the temple of the Holy Spirit. Make it a clean temple. Build it up. Take care of it. Don't stink. Do you stink? Do you smell pleasing to your wife or to your girlfriend? Ladies, do you smell good for your guy, for your man? By the way, Google this. That's all you got to do. Google it. I take your phone right now. Google, does hygiene affect a relationship? Does stinking affect a relationship? Does not wearing deodorant affect a relationship? Just Google. You'll see it's a huge deal. It's all over the internet today. That's all I got to say about that one. Let's move on. Biblical law of attraction number 4, character and reputation matter. Character and reputation matter. Let's jump into this one. Check out verse 3, the second part of it. Your name is oil poured out. Therefore, virgins, young women, love you. They love you. He has good character in her presence, and he has good character with the ladies in town. If your reputation precedes you in a negative way, shame on you. The Bible teaches that you are to have a good name. A good name is to be treasured above all things. So what is your character? What is your presence when you're with your wife? And what is your character and what is your presence when you're with those outside of your household? Matter of fact, pastors are held to this very same standard. They must have a good report of those who are within the church and those that are without the church. And we see this even in the relationship here in Song of Solomon, where it mentions that he has good character in the relationship. Your name is oil poured out, a fragrance. It smells good. It has an aroma that is positive. It's poured out. It's already there. Nothing to hide. It's on the floor. And then the virgins, young women, love you. They talk about you in a good way. They talk about you in a positive way. And this is a good thing. Never connect with someone until you check out their name and their reputation. You know, today with social media, you can find out a lot about people online before you ever really get to know them. Check out people. If you're in a dating relationship, talk to their friends, talk to their parents, talk to their siblings, find out who they are. Because I guarantee you this, however they treat their parents, if they disrespect their parents, they're going to disrespect you. If they disrespect their friends, they're going to disrespect you. If they don't show love to their siblings, their parents, their friends, they're not going to do that to you either. It's only a matter of time until they're going to turn and Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde becomes apparent, because your best interest is not in their mind. Let me give you 10 characteristics that matter. 10 signs of a good character, okay? And these are not necessarily in any particular order. However, all 10 of them are important as we deal with relationships. Let me throw it up big on the screen here for you. Just want to make it nice and big here so you can read it. Number one, they are reliable. Are they reliable? You know, do they show up when they say they're going to show up? Are they going to keep their word and honor their word as you are entering into your relationship? They tell you they're going to be there at 7. Do they show up at 9? Or do they not show up at all? If they tell you that you're going to go on a date and then they cancel, they back out on it all the time. If they're unreliable in the dating environment, they will be unreliable in the married environment, okay? Number 2, are they trustworthy? That is this. Where's their heart? Do they keep secrets? Are they faithful? Are they stressed out about everything? Do they tell other people your intimate things that you confide in them? Trustworthy. Trust is huge when it comes to relationships. Number 3, are they honest? Do they lie or do they tell the truth? Do they exaggerate or do they state it the way that it is? Ladies, you want honesty in your relationships. You don't want to be playing a game all the time. Number 4, public respect. Do they put you down in public or do they build you up in public? Well, let me tell you what my stupid wife did. Or let me tell you what she always does. She's always nagging me about. You know what? You don't need that. You can do better. And guys, if you're tearing your woman down in public, stop. It doesn't make you look cool. It doesn't make you look smart. It doesn't make you look manly. It makes you look like a wimp. It makes you look like you're weak. It makes you look like a coward that you have to hide behind tearing down your wife because you're that little of a man. So I just want to admonish you here to treat your wife with respect. Do it right. Do it well. Number 5, how does he treat others? Again, I mentioned this just before. How does he treat others? If he disrespects his friends, if he disrespects his parents, he disrespects other people, he will disrespect you as well. So don't be surprised when that happens. Is he a man of integrity? Is his yay, yay, his nay, nay? Does he do what he says? Is he a man that has moral character? Integrity. Does he have limits? Is he patient? He doesn't blow up, doesn't fly off the handle. He's stable mentally. Values. This one's huge. What is most important? What are the limits? What are the guardrails? Financially, physically. What are the guardrails or boundaries when it comes to relationships with the opposite sex? That leads into the next one, purity. Is he a man that has purity? Is he looking at magazines because he doesn't know how to foster your relationship in a way that gets you to want to be with him? If he's cheating on you in dating, if he's cheating on you in courtship, and he's cheating on you with pornography, and he's cheating on you with other things, magazines or videos, or emotionally compromising on you by investing his emotional attention in some other woman, then you know what? That's not a good character. That's not good. And last of all, but probably most importantly of all, does he have a relationship with God? And there's a difference between having a relationship with God and knowing about God. Well, I know that God exists, therefore I'm a follower of God. No, is he going to grow you spiritually? Is he going to push you forward in your relationship with God? Is he going to be constantly trying to get you to do things that are unbiblical, or is he encouraging you to do what's right? All right, last but not least here, biblical law of attraction, number 5, and that is this one, sexual desire. Sexual desire. Look with me at Song of Solomon, chapter 1, verse 4. Draw me after you, let us run. The king has brought me into his chambers. Because of all that he's done to this point, because of the affection, because of the emotional connectedness, because of the personal hygiene, his good character, his good name, now she's ready to go. Now she's ready to invite him in. Now she is ready to be intimate with her man. She wants to be with her man. There's anticipation. There's a wanting for intimacy. The relationship is progressing to the place where marriage is soon to happen. Again, remember there's limits. Remember these things. I told you this book is hard to understand because it kind of bounces around a little bit. But what we're seeing here is a woman who is anticipating seeing her man. There's been things that have occurred in the relationship. The smells, the anticipation. She's thinking crazy about him. She wants to be with him. And now he has invited her into his presence. And she is giddy. She's excited about this. And this is a good thing. There's anticipation building. That reminds me of a couple things. Number one, a woman should never rob herself of sexual pleasure by settling for a man that she's not attracted to. This is unfair in many ways to some guys that have kept their purity for their wife, only to find out that the wife, as number 2 states here, was just checking boxes in Christianity to find a guy that would provide for her, but she herself is not physically attracted to her husband. And there are couples today, and I've spoken with couples in my 18 plus years of marriage, or 18 plus years of ministry, that in their marriage, they have not had intimacy for over a decade, for huge periods of time. Ladies, do not check boxes as a Christian woman. He's got a job, he's got a house, he's got money, he's got stability. If he is attracted to you physically and you are not attracted to him, it's going to cause problems within the marriage. It's just going to cause issues down the road. You see, there in marriage, he can only have sex with one person, you. You're supposed to only have sex with one person, him. And when that is taken away within the bonds of marriage, those urges and those tendencies are still there, and they've got to be lived out somewhere. And unfortunately, a lot of guys turn to pornography. And a lot of wives turn to pornography. And eventually they confide in somebody emotionally at work, or a friend, or a neighbor. And all of a sudden, what they never thought would occur, occurs, an affair. And the marriage breaks up because there are things that are not being met within the bonds of marriage that God intended to happen. Look at the last point here, and this will kind of lay it all out for us. You actually rob God in 2 ways when you withhold sex from your partner. You see, sex is a gift from God to a married couple. Sex is okay within the bonds of marriage. Sex is something that should happen frequently within the bonds of marriage. It is to be enjoyed in the bonds of marriage. But when you get married and you're not attracted to your spouse because you're checking boxes to get what you want, not what's best for each other, and that sex is taken away from the other spouse, it causes friction. The married couple is to enjoy each other through sex. This is what God ordained. This is what God instructs. Be fruitful and multiply. Let a man leave his father and mother and cleave to his wife, and they become one flesh. Sex was given to human beings within the bonds of marriage for pleasure and as a gift from God. Now, I don't know about you, but I like my salvation. Salvation's a gift from God as well. Number 5, sexual desire should eventually become public. Look what her friends say. We will exalt and rejoice in you, and we will extol your love more than wine. Rightly do they love you. Private love must eventually become public. If you're in a relationship where the guy doesn't want people to know what's going on, and it's secretive, and it's covert, and it's under wraps, get out of that relationship. Get out of it. If you're in a dating relationship and that's going on, get out. If he said, well, you know what, maybe we should live together, get to know each other a little more, test drive the car, make sure we're compatible, get out of the relationship. Get out of it. If he will not go public now, he will not go public later. What's the motivation? There isn't any. Last of all, this public display of affection and love after marriage should be a sign of a healthy marriage. When couples don't touch each other, when they don't communicate with affection, when they don't embrace, there's something wrong with a married couple who doesn't show public display of affection. Maybe you're old-fashioned, get over it. The Bible is very much more old-fashioned, and it's still true. So let's apply this. Let's nail this down for us. Let's apply what we got going on here. Number 1, the man. Guys, this is for you. The man sets the temperature in a relationship. Let me say that again. The man sets the temperature in the relationship. You know what? Let me do something here. I want to come big view here because I want us to understand this point straight up. The man is responsible for affection in the relationship. Guys, you're going to get out of your relationship what you put into it. If you're constantly nagging, tearing down your wife, and you're not supporting her, you're not taking time with her, you're not supporting her interests, and you're always barking commands as king of the castle, well then don't be surprised when you're a lonely king. Don't be surprised when all you're getting is pure physical response without any of the emotional, without any of the caring, without any of the other stuff. Don't be surprised when that happens because the man sets the temperature in the relationship. Notice what she wants. She wants his kiss. She wants his presence. She wants him to be with her, not her to be with him. He's going to make the effort to get to her. And guys, we need to make the effort to know our spouses. All right, let me get back in here. Number 2, it is healthy for a woman to express her feelings and desires for her man in the right context. Now, we don't need to be hanging all over our spouse in public and need a hotel room, okay? That's not what we're talking about. But it is completely appropriate for us to kiss our wife in public. It is completely appropriate for couples to hold hands in public, in church in public. It's okay. These public displays of affection are good things. What are we telling teenagers when we hold hands? What are we telling teenagers when we put our arm around our spouse? What are we telling teenagers when they see us kiss our spouse? Public display of affection is okay within the bonds of marriage. That's the key, within the bonds of marriage. We need to reiterate that. So there's nothing wrong with a woman displaying public affection to her spouse or a husband giving public display of affection to his wife if done in the right context. And number 3, no man wants to be married to a woman that does not initiate physical intimacy any more than a woman wants to be married to a man who never instigates or initiates affection. Guys, it's a two-way street on this one. You want your wife to be physical with you, then you need to be showing her affection. You need to be doing things without expecting. You need to be doing things without foreplay. You need to just do things because you love your wife. You need to spend time. You need to talk to her. You need to do the things that grow relationships. Turn the TV off. Turn football off. You can watch it later, watch the highlights, spend time with your wife. So, if you want your man, wives, if you want your man to show affection, then you must also be a woman who initiates physical intimacy. See, the opposite's true. Ladies, if you want your man to show you affection, then you must be a woman who's going to be intimate with your man. It's not a one or the other. It's a both and. As he learns to be affectionate towards you, you learn to be physically intimate towards him. It doesn't always mean sexual intercourse. It could just be cuddling. It could just be use your imagination. If you don't have an imagination, start with chapter 3 and start blushing, okay? So, that is going to wrap up this video, and I hope that it was a blessing to you as we introduce the book Song of Solomon, his creme de la creme of songs that he wrote, the song of all songs, one that he wrote for us to understand what true love is, what true biblical manhood is, what true biblical womanhood is, and what it means to have sex, God, and love in a proper perspective. Remember, sex was given to couples as a gift from God. And we need to make sure that we don't defraud each other, except for a time period of prayer and fasting, and understand that there are times and seasons in which it doesn't happen, but it should not go long, extended periods of time without happening. If it is, there's something wrong with your marriage. And ladies and guys, you know what it is. So, if you want to review this, go back and look at the 5 different laws, biblical laws that were mentioned in the video here. Go over those. Look at the 10 characteristics of good character from a man. And wives, sit down with your husband and talk through those things. Help them understand the ones that they're deficient in, because I guarantee you, not a guy that watches this has all 10 of them. Not a single guy has all 10 of those knocked down. And then also, talk about your relationship with your wife. Talk about what she wants, what she desires for your marriage, what she desires in your relationship. And then, come back next Friday as we upload the video for video number 2, as we start in verse 5 and begin to work our way through the book of Song of Solomon. Thanks for tuning in. I hope this was a blessing for you. I will see you next week. Thank you. Read the book of Song of Solomon, and I'll join you next week. So long.